What is your outlook towards private equity investment going into 2012?
We're still very constructive. Look, the financial markets need to be somewhat stable for us to finance acquisitions that we're making. We also have a very large portfolio today. We're looking at making add-on acquisitions with our portfolio companies, and in that way we're actually a strategic buyer more than a financial buyer, because we're buying companies that have pre-existing management teams and where we can bring synergies to the table. But no, we're very constructive on private equity. We still see the whole industry as one that can continue to create value for our limited partners and create returns that are well in excess of the public markets.
Earlier you mentioned something about CEOs having sort of a negative psychology. Do you think that negative psychology is having an impact on deal making within private equity?
Perhaps a little bit. I think the whole industry and things have slowed down a little bit in the second half of this year relative to the first half of this year and the second half of last year. And I think that psychology plays into it a little bit. As I said, I think the financial markets play into it very directly for us. It's hard to do LBOs without much L or leverage. I think the psychology in the boardroom is a very important backdrop. We've had a couple of transactions we've bid on in the last 6 months where the seller ultimately just decided not to transact as opposed to go to somebody else. And I think the psychology had something to do with that.
And what is your outlook on the financial markets?
With a slow growth environment, 0 to 2% GDP growth environment in the U.S., which is what our expectation is over the next several years, we don't expect a double dip. And with perhaps a much higher likelihood of a recession in Europe, I think the financial markets are probably going to go sideways for some time. The political uncertainty also is something that weighs on the markets, and we're seeing political uncertainty both in Europe and the U.S.